Hello, my dear students. Welcome to another section of Principles and Macroeconomics. This section will be talking about money and interest. Last section, we spoke about economic growth, which we say it's an increase in a country's economy through increased production of goods and services over a period of time. And also we spoke about the three types of economic systems, which are free market economy, planned economy, and mixed economy. And also we discussed GDP, which is a measure of economic growth, and it was defined as the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a specific period of time. In this section, would be discussing about money exchange. We'll be discussing about bank and financial markets, interest rates, monetary policy, and monetary regime. I believe when you log on to your module, you would see the lecture 5. That's for week 5 lecture. You would see this material there. And going forward, when we talk about exchange, everybody in one way or the other does exchange. We have what we know as direct and indirect exchange. Well, in direct exchange, these two parties involved, that is the parties involved, they have a common object of exchange. Example is the barter system, where we have a trade by barter, where, for instance, you have a potato farmer who needs rice. And so for him to get his potato in exchange for rice, he has to locate a rice farmer who needs potato. You know, this issue is known as the double coincidence of want, whereby you have to get someone that needs your product in order to exchange for that person's product. Now, because of this barrier of exchange, the indirect exchange came into place, whereby there is an item or an object, an agreed object, which is used as the medium of exchange. And this brought about the money, where money is defined as a generally accepted and commonly used medium of exchange. Over the years, money has evolved. It's evolved from commodity money, and where the market participants decide to use one commodity rather than the other in their direct exchange. At some point, the use of salt was common, then the use of grain, and then it grew to precious metals like silver, like gold, even iron, where it was crafted for as a means of exchange. And now we have what is popularly called paper money, also known as the fiat money, which is a legal tender, that is a money backed by law. Every currency of a country is backed by law. So the currency of a country which is the paper money, is the fiat money. For instance, in the UK, you have the pounds. In the US, you have the US dollar. And all in countries of the world, you have their different currencies, which is backed by the law of that country. And so the development of a general medium of exchange is a crucial requisite to the development of any sort of flourishing economy. Money is important in the growth and prosperity of any economy. And even as traders, Money allows them to be able to calculate their profits and loss. For instance, when you have the barter system where you carry one goods in exchange for another, how do you measure if you've made profit? How do you measure if you've made loss, especially when you are in need of a service and you have to exchange a good, for instance? Maybe you want to barb your hair, for instance, and you are looking for someone that can barb, and then that means you probably have to give your potato to the person that barbs in exchange for the barbing service. So how do you quantify this? It's difficult, but with money, it's easy. It's easy to calculate profits. It's easy to quantify. It's easy to calculate losses. Going forward, why do people owe money? People owe money for different reasons. The number one reason is the transaction motive. That is, people want to spend money. We owed money in our wallets, in our purses, because we want to spend them. Another reason is the precautionary motive. Excuse me. It is when you owed money for unforeseen or unforeseen circumstances, things you're not expecting. You owed money, you keep money so that in case things you don't plan for happen, then you go for it. You're not left stranded. Remember, things sometimes happens to human, things you don't see coming, it happens, and then you have to attend to that thing. The third one is speculative. Speculative is holding cash for future reasons. Yeah, you've speculated you want to do that particular thing in the future. So you are planning towards it. You're planning to make an investment and like so. It's important also to hold money for such matters. Now, just like I mentioned earlier, that money is important. As much as the circulation of money is done through the central bank, the commercial bank too has their function. In your class activity, it's important to know the function of the commercial bank. When you check through, you see function of commercial banks. When you read articles and you read online resources, you'll be able to know a function of the commercial bank. The central bank is important in every economy because they are the government's bank, even though they are state-owned, but they are independent from the government. There's a way they work. There's a way the central bank runs. And a central bank is a type of bankers bank whose financial obligation underlie an economy's money supply, pushing money into the economy. They are in charge. So if the commercial bank needs to borrow money, they go to the central bank. If there is financial panic, the central bank is there to make loans available to commercial banks so as to make leverage. Now, also they have the ability to create money, to print money, and they have the power to control the monetary policy. We'll see, talking about monetary policy, we'll see get there in due time. So the central bank is important. And while the central bank focuses on interest rate as its operating target, it also have a focus of stabilizing price, ensuring acceptable employment, sustainable growth, and also moderate long-term interest rate. And so how does the central um, bank, that's the central bank objective, and how do they interplay? You can see using the central bank tools, now you have an operating target, you have the intermediate target, you have the ultimate target. You can see the classifications there. The ultimate target is to ensure the stable price, sustainable growth, acceptable level of employment, and then moderate interest rate. But all these things, just like you have in the chart, it's interplays with one another from one state to the other. Now, talking about interest rates, we have the short-term interest rates, we have the long-term interest rates. The long-term interest rate is the price paid for financial assets with long maturity. When we talk about long-term, we are not talking about 1 week, we are not talking about 1 month. we are talking about a long term, like a year. The short term is is the short interest rate, is the price paid for financial assets with short maturities. Short financial assets are called money. Remember in your financial accounting, when you talk about cash and cash equivalents, yeah, which are easily convertible to money, to cash. So the short term in the short term financial assets, they are easily converted to cash, to money. All right. So the market risk can contain a premium risk and inflation premium. And the nominal interest are interest that you can see and pay, while the real interest rate and nominal interest rate adjusted for expected inflation. And how do you now calculate the real interest? You deduct the expected inflation from the nominal interest rate. Now, talking about the policies that are available to government, you have the monetary policy and you have the fiscal policy. What is the difference between these two? Monetary policy is controlled by the central bank, while the fiscal policy is controlled by the government. Now, these two policies, they are used to regulate economic activities over time. They can be used to accelerate growth when an economy starts to slow down, or to moderate growth and activity when an economy starts to overheat. So all these policies is not they can be applied together to achieve government objective. Remember, we spoke about some objectives like stable price. We have acceptable employment level, and then among others, which is the aim of every government. So these policies, monetary and fiscal policies, are important. And now I want you to know that in the course of your assignment, which when you check on Moody, you see the assignment brief. These two policies are important in any economy. So it is something you cannot overlook: monetary policy, fiscal policy. All right, going forward, what is monetary policy? Is a policy of influencing the economy through changes in the banking system's reserve that influence money supply. Remember, I told you that monetary policy is controlled by the central bank, while fiscal policy is controlled by the government. So the fiscal policy controlled by the government directly, while monetary policy is controlled by the central bank, and the central bank of UK is known as the Bank of England. So the monetary policy works through modifying the money supply, monetary inflation, or monetary deflation. And then we have the monetary policy model, which is the expansionary monetary policy and contractionary monetary policy. One is used to increase the money supply and decrease interest. That's expansion. To contract, that's the policy decreases the money supply and increase interest rate. So now we have the monetary regime. Most economists believe that a monetary regime, not a monetary policy, is the best approach to policy. Well, it depends. Policymakers are well concerned about establishing policy credibility because they believe it is necessary to prevent inflationary expectations from becoming built into the economy. So most economists might think, some economists believe monetary regime, not monetary policy, is the best approach, while some think, well, policies should work out as long as the policies are credible. And so a monetary regime is a predetermined statement of the policy that will be followed in various situations. Monetary policy is a response to events. Why monetary regime is a predetermined statement of policies that will be followed in various situations. But then nowadays, monetary monetary regimes are favored because rules can help generate market expectation. Okay, so how does the Bank of England use monetary policy? Two ways. The quantitative easing, which is the buying of bonds to lower interest rates on savings and loan, and the bank rate, whereby interest rates are charged to borrow money, that is from the central bank. And the target of the UK government and the Bank of England is to achieve 2% inflation in the economy. That is, a low and stable inflation rate is good for an economy. One thing you should understand is that you cannot, as long as an economy is growing, there will be inflation. So it's every government seeks to have a stable and low inflation rate. So the UK government's aim is to achieve 2% inflation rate. But as at August, the inflation rate was 6.8, while the bank rate was 5.25%. So now, one thing you should know is that the bank rate determines the interest rate that is paid to the commercial bank that owes money with central bank, and it influences the rates that those bank charge people to borrow money from them or pay on their. So now how it works for the interest rate is that commercial bank, they keep money with Bank of England. And so now once they borrow money from Bank of England, they are charged particular interest rates. And so in return, the commercial bank charges individuals that come to them to lend money or give interest rates to deposits in their bank. And as I explained earlier, that the quantitative easing involves buying bonds to push up their prices and bring down long-term interest rate. So that is about how this Bank of England uses monetary policy to achieve monetary policy in the economy, bank rates, and quantitative easing. So the post-class activity, in your module, you would see the file for week 5. You see post-class activity there. The question there is you discuss how Bank of England has been able to use the two monetary policy tools to stabilize the UK economy. And what are these two monetary policy tools? Don't forget, number one is bank rates. Number two is quantitative easing. So in this class, we've been able to discuss the two types of exchange, indirect and direct exchange. We discussed what money is. We discussed why money came into place, because even through indirect exchange, there is a commonly agreed object, which is monetary unit, which is agreed upon by parties involved in transaction in exchange as a medium of exchange. So money is said to be the generally accepted and commonly used medium of exchange. We've been able to talk about the function of central bank in the economy, and also we've spoken about the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, the difference between the two. And we discussed how Bank of England, which is the central bank of UK, is how they use monetary policy to control the UK economy. Thank you very much for listening today. You can refer to your module for the material and for detailed explanation and to this lecture. Thank you very much. See you in the next section. Bye-bye.